Good afternoon. This is November 12th at 3 p.m. This is Knox County Commission Agenda Review. And Madam Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Commissioner Ross.
Present.
Commissioner Derrick.
Here.
Commissioner Oster.
Here.
Commissioner Jackson.
Here.
Commissioner Russell.
Here.
Commissioner Hill. Here. Commissioner Lee.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Commissioner Fox.
Here.
Commissioner Jay. Here. Commissioner Frazier.
Present.
All members are present.
Thank you. Reminder, this is an optional meeting and no votes will be taken. Commissioners, I'd like you to go through your agenda and we'll pull off items for discussion. Commissioner Durrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will you pull 25 and 26, please?
25 and 26.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Frazier.
Would you pull 28? I'd like to sign on.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Jay.
I'd also like to sign on to 28. Thank you.
Thank you. Would 28, does full commission want to sign on to that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Drew, if you can note that, please. Thank you. Okay, am I missing anybody else? Okay.
Commissioner Oster,
Yes.
I would also, on item 23, like to sign on.
Okay. You're actually on there, Commissioner.
Well, thank you. I was
Yeah.
informed I wasn't. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Madam Chair, I would like to sign on to that one also,
To
please.
23? Okay. Is that full commission also, 23? That's for the pay raises for the employees? Okay, so that'll be full commission also. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Jay?
Thank you. Could you also pull 13 for discussion?
15, yes, sir. 15.
13.
Oh, 13, I'm
13.
sorry. You heard correct. Commissioner Russell? Oh, you're not. I thought you did your hand. So I'll go over what we've got right now. We've got 13. I don't think we need to go over 23 if that's okay, since everybody signed on, and 28, everybody signed on. So we have 13, 25, and 26.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to discuss these today, but I want to pull several from the consent calendar for next week.
Okay,
I want to pull 18, 19, 20. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. I don't want to pull number 20. 27, I'd like to pull those from the consent calendar. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So as of right now for today, we have 13, 25, 26, and then Commissioner Fox is pulled for consent calendar next week, 18, 19, and 27. Anybody else for today? All right, seeing none, we will start with number 13, Commissioner J.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Snowden?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Jay.
Thank you. Will this contract also be one that can be mirrored or piggybacked with Parks and Rec when it comes to the Beaver Creek project? Because I think some of the tree services were tied to similar procurement vendors.
They do. These particular contracts are one-year renewal, renewing it for 5-year total. And this really just includes hourly rates for bucket trucks, various equipment, various specialist arborists, things like that. So Joe or anyone else in the county government could piggyback that contract.
Okay, because I think they lost the other vendor in the process, if I remember, maybe.
They did. Both these vendors here are new vendors to
Okay,
us.
all right, good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I don't need that pulled for next week or anything. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Snowden on number 13? Seeing none, we will go to number 25. And this is what Commissioner Durrett pulled. You have the floor.
Madam Chair, are we not doing 18 and 19 and?
I'm sorry, yes, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay.
Sorry about that. I was getting ahead of myself. So you didn't want it pulled today, was that correct? Or do you want to discuss it today?
I don't want it to be a part of the consent docket for next week. I'm happy if people, I mean, I'm not really prepared to discuss these, but I know that I want to further investigate it, and I don't want it to come up for a vote as part of, the rest of the consent calendar.
Okay.
So, but I do want to add another one. That's 16. I knew I left one off. I'm going to be giving a presentation next week explaining my rationale. I can give you a little insight into it right now if you want to hear. That is, there was a comment made.
Which one are we on?
Really, all of them, Your Honor. Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I was in court earlier.
So 16, 18, and 19.
Yes, that's correct. With respect to 16 and 18, there was a comment made during debate last month about the need to comply with certain federal standards and interpretations of civil rights laws because we want to get our tax dollars back. And that's really a misunderstanding of how the federal grant process works in our current environment because we don't get our tax dollars back. If you look at the federal budget, every dime that we receive as a grant is money that the federal government borrows. We're not getting our tax dollars back. The federal government is borrowing money in the form of bonds and giving us borrowed money. And so because if you look at our federal revenue of approximately $4 trillion, and you take out non-discretionaries, you take out interest, you take out the cost of, and by interest I mean debt service on the bonds that we already have, you take out the cost of national defense, which is the primary function of the federal government, and we're already underwater. So that means that the federal government's borrowing money to give to us, and I just can't in good conscience be a part of that when right now, every taxpayer owes over 200. It's interesting. I really appreciate Mr. Caldwell providing this as part of the Finance Committee's earlier review because it says, let's see, I missed the page. It says debt obligation per Knox County citizen right now, $1,890.71. And I appreciate that because that's exactly the line of thinking I want to present in my presentation. right now, every taxpayer, every citizen owes somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000. But every actual taxpayer owes over $200,000 on the current federal debt of over $36 trillion. And that's why I want to vote on these things, because I am not going to, in good conscience, vote to have the county go tell the federal government to borrow money to give to us, and then we place it on the backs of future generations to pay off, given the seriousness of our debt situation already. So that's why I'm pulling from the consent calendar. I was going to prepare a presentation that provided proof. You can get it from the CBO. I've already looked at the proof. I just haven't placed it into a actual presentation yet, a PowerPoint. But that's it in a nutshell. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. And I assume that you'll ask Ms. Holden any questions, since she's the lead on these.
Well, this really is irrespective of the fine work that she does, okay? She does good work. She gets the grants, and I'm not criticizing in any way the quality of her work. It's just as an overarching policy, I don't believe we should be taking money that is being borrowed from the federal government. Now, this may not have been true 40 years ago. I know, as a matter of fact, when Bill Clinton was president in the 90s, there was a brief period of time where the federal government was actually not running a yearly deficit and not adding to the debt, and the debt was much lower. And it could very well have been argued back then that the federal government wasn't literally going out and borrowing money to give to state and local governments, but that's what it's doing right now. So the climate has changed, and I just, I wanted to correct that misunderstanding that was stated at the last meeting.
Thank you. All right, so that goes through 16, 18, 19. Now we are on 25. Yes.
Madam Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Jay. I
Thank you.
apologize.
Thank you very much. Just a quick, Commissioner Fox, we at 2 o'clock today, we just held our Finance Committee meeting. I chair along with Commissioner Russell as our vice chair. If there's also a forum that if you want to have a more robust discussion about it, we do this quarterly. You're more than happy to request some time in the agenda, and that's a good avenue as well to have a more open discussion that isn't necessarily tied to one particular item. So if you want to add something, I think our next finance meeting will be in February.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay.
Commissioner Hill.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate your efforts and Commissioner Fox, and that you're going to bring a presentation that, outlines this a little closer. What I hope you will also address in the presentation is an alternative way to get these needs that are being asked for taken care of, that would still not be on the backs of the people, the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Rawls.
Madam Chair, a point to number 19 I'd like to, and I don't know if this is general knowledge for everyone on the council, but 1,798 people a day seek homelessness services in the county. That's our county dashboard from the statistics of the Office of Housing and Sustainability. That's an awful lot of people. And that number's getting larger as we continue. And so I have a real problem with postponing 19's discussion in light of that fact, so.
We're not postponing Commissioner Rawls. He just wants to discuss it next week and vote on it individually instead of put it on non-consent.
Okay.
Yep. So you can come with questions next week.
Now, I'd like to hear him talk about it now.
Okay.
That specific piece, the homelessness issue that's happening.
Well, what's your question?
I'd like for you to discuss how do we address the homelessness situation without the HUD funding that goes into the Office of Housing Sustainability.
Well, why don't we explore private sources? Okay? And in fact, this was actually done in Florida. Florida has been a leader in taking what was traditionally government funding and helping people get out of the treadmill of government welfare, government assistance, and move on to having productive lives. There was a program that Governor DeSantis's wife helped to lead because she created a partnership between private charities and was able to get people off of it. But, you know, government is not always the answer to homelessness, to disparity in income, and I want to take a look at that. I want to review I've not had an opportunity yet to review the wording of this particular grant, so I might be more equipped to discuss it next week. But, you know, if you're talking about what is my overarching philosophy in welfare and in grants and spending government money to try to solve problems when government often is not the best solution, that's it.
I don't believe homelessness services are welfare. You just state that. We're not talking about welfare. We're talking about homeless veterans. We're talking about homeless youth. We're talking about people who are on a thin line economically. If you look at that dashboard, the number one reason for homelessness situations in this county is housing affordability. Has nothing to do with welfare. So just address that part of it.
Okay, well, there are lots of reasons for homelessness, and I know that I've been accosted many times working downtown by homeless. There are many people who choose homelessness because it's a lifestyle that allows them to have freedom without any responsibilities. I've seen statistics, and I'm glad you're telling me this because I'll go out and get these things. I've seen statistics where homeless can make $100 a day panhandling. Maybe you don't work downtown and you've not been subject to that kind of solicitation.
I've had an office downtown.
Okay, so, and then when you direct people to CARM and other, you know, those types of agencies, they say, oh, well, they won't have me there. And the reason why is because they don't want to make a choice to get better. And also, I don't believe in the concept of housing first. I believe if you want to get off the street, and that's part of the problem with some of these HUD grants is they promote housing first, which is just another word for enabling. And so somebody doesn't want to get over their substance abuse. They enjoy their substance abuse. And all that is enabling people to continue in their substance abuse. So there are genuine issues with just providing money carte blanche to live in a home or to address homelessness. And you may be talking, there may be other cases not like what I'm talking about, but I don't think it should be granted with just a sweep of a pen. I think it needs to be discussed thoroughly. And you're right, there are some people who are just a paycheck away, as many of us are, from not being able to make ends meet, but there are also a group of people that fit in the description that I provided.
Commissioner Jackson?
I was just going to make a point of order that, you know, I was just going to say this is an agenda review, you know, and I look forward to our, you know, seeing the presentation next week.
Thank you. Ms. Holden in the room? Ms. Holden, next week, can you also come with all the programs with the grants that that we have for these items that Commissioner Fox has gonna be discussing?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be glad to bring. Just everything federally funded, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and probably just get with, Commissioner Fox and find out if there's particular ones, but I think the grants are important to point out too, that we get the grant money.
Absolutely.
So,
I'll have that ready.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
On 19, I had a question, when it says approving the written standards, do we not already have some written standards in the program, or how? So I guess, just a point of clarification on what was being approved.
Absolutely. We actually, those standards were approved in July at that commission meeting. After you all had approved those standards, the state came out with updates to the standards. Most of it, I mean, it's crazy things like just formatting and that kind of thing. And so, but that is one program that requires that we have any changes to the standards approved by our legislative body.
Gotcha, okay.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other discussion on that item, we will move on. We've already discussed 23, so we will move on to 25. Commissioner Durrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This resolution is very similar to one that we had last year that we ended up tabling. So I did have a couple of questions. I mean, there are some differences, so, and I know it is at the discretion of the chair to place on the agenda, and that's fine. So I did have some questions for the sponsor. Commissioner Lee, in the resolution, it says there are specific budget items that are funded, that are harmful materials, activities, institutions engaging in the sexualization of children as listed in the resolutions. What are those specific budget items so we can be sure to look at those when it's budget season?
Are you talking about where it says be it further resolved?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, first of all, I wanted to just give some history about this resolution. This resolution is not to target any specific groups of people, sexual orientation. This resolution is, we just spent over an hour talking about $1 billion budget we have here in Knox County. Most of that budget goes to our schools, public safety. We have very limited resources on our roads and just functioning with salaries and the things that we need to do. We have some nonprofits that we give money to, and they're well deserving. This resolution would be if any nonprofit participates in any activities that sexually exploit our kids, that we would not give taxpayer dollars to fund that. Not going back of what they've done, but if going forward that these organizations would know specifically, let's say for an example, the drag shows. Our legislature, if we follow the law, and our governor passed the Adult Entertainment Act last year, that children under 18 would not be, what is defined as adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors are topless dancers, go-go dancers, exotic dancers, strippers, male and female impersonators, or similar entertainers. And harmful to minors is the quality of any description or representation in any form of nudity, sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, or sadomasochism, abuse when performed. So any of our nonprofits, and that's specifically when I'm talking about the nonprofits, I'm not talking about our county employees or any money that's going to fund our roads. I'm talking about our nonprofits that we give taxpayer dollars, that we have people in this community that are offended by anything that exploits our children. So if a venue wants to have entertainment where children, we cannot regulate morality. We cannot regulate what parents do with their children, but we can regulate, as this commission, where our tax dollars go. And we have people, myself included, that do not want our taxpayer dollars, as limited as they are, going to fund things that exploit our children. Our Supreme Court has said there is no First Amendment free speech interest in exhibiting indecent material. That's the highest court in the land, that it says there's no free speech violation when you're trying to protect our children. So, all this resolution is doing is saying, and also, one other thing I wanted to bring out, that our TCA, our state law, said it is a community standard, along with the Supreme Court. The community standard is what we view is inappropriate. We are the community, right here. And if our people in our Knox County do not want their taxpayers funds going to shows that would be showing sexual displays of indecency to our children.
Right.
And so it's just giving a heads up. If you're going to, whether you be Tennessee Theater, Imes Nature Center, going here forward, if you're gonna allow shows that do that, that this this county commission would be able to say, we won't give you our taxpayer dollars.
But our taxpayer dollars don't go to those specific funds, or to those specific things. Like you mentioned a drag show. Our taxpayer dollars don't go to that drag show.
They don't go to the drag show, they go to the venue where they could be held.
For specific programs.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So if a venue that we do give money to is going to allow that to happen, that we are able to say, we don't want our taxpayer dollars going there.
Okay. So what are the specific budget items that, are we currently funding? You mentioned the Tennessee Theater and Imes Nature Center. Are those two that you would want if they continued, which we know there's a drag show scheduled for next month. However, it is 18 and up, so
Right.
it is
If
not.
it's 18 and up, then that would be in compliance with the decency.
So regardless of what our taxpayer funds or our county is funding, whether it be that particular event or something else, which it is something else, you're saying we just don't give any money at all, regardless of what program it is, if they so choose to do something like that?
Correct.
Okay. So are there any organizations right now, or is there anything that the county is funding that you feel would violate this resolution if it were passed today? Is there anything, are there any specifics?
It has happened
our
in the
budget?
past. But I'm saying going forward, if we pass this resolution, everybody would have notice and they would know that they would not get the dollars from taxpayers coming to their venue. I don't know what else for the future. But I do know, as of 2 years ago, Imes Nature Center was going to have a show that had animals. And we were made aware of that, and they closed that show down. And they made that choice. So unless they have another show, then they would not be off the list of getting taxpayer dollars. We can't shut these shows down. We can't do that. But giving taxpayer dollars when we have needs that are very critical in this county, like our roads, like public safety, like paying our officers what they deserve. Why would we give it to something that's exploiting our children?
Okay. Another question is, we mentioned that we are the community and that the morality issue kind of relies on us. Who interprets those definitions in the laws referenced? So my question is, as a former history teacher, would teaching about Leonardo da Vinci and ancient Rome be considered sexualizing children because the statue of David depicts the male figure in full form? Would we have to cut ancient history from our curriculum in high school?
Well, here is a definition that the Supreme Court gave on sexual contact. It's sexual acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, when it depicts explicit sexual activity that gives the appearance of ultimate sex acts, Anal, oral, genital. Ultimate sexual acts means sexual intercourse, anal, otherwise, fellatio, cunnilingus, sodomy, anything that depicts masturbation, excretory functions, lewd exhibits of genitals, and any sexual excitement, anything within those descriptions.
Well, I mean, it does reference genitals being shown, and the statue of David is a naked man. So, I mean, that is my concern with this. It is very broad. It could be interpreted many different ways, and I feel like many things could be pulled in as we go along in the future. Just like you said, we don't know what the future holds. And so that is a big concern with me. And on top of that, speaking of curriculum in Knox County schools, how would this affect sex education?
Well, ultimately, I don't think this county commission oversees too much of what the schools do. We don't have that authority.
But we do
giving
provide
taxpayer-
funding.
We have to say yes. We don't have the ability to withhold money from the schools. It's regulated by state law. So we can say our concerns, but our nonprofits, we do have the ability to write a check or not write a check.
And
So I don't think that this, if it's looked at by this community, it is not broad. If it fits any of the descriptions I just mentioned, and it's with minor children under 18, it's sexual exploitation.
Okay. Last question is, I know in 2020, we had this big, do we wear masks, do we not? How is this different from the government mandating masks during that time? Because that was very much we don't want government stepping in and telling us what to do with our children.
It's 100% totally different. These acts contribute to human trafficking. It brings nothing to our children. And to take taxpayer dollars that people have no choice if they're gonna pay property tax, sales tax. The government's taking it from them. You have no choice. And to take that money where it's very well needed in this county to upkeep our roads, to pay our law enforcement, to pay our county employees, and all the other things that function as a government, that I believe the majority of people in this county, if we put this even on the ballot, would support this a resolution.
Okay, I just want to reiterate, the county is currently, nor have they ever, funded any program, material, et cetera, that supports the sexualization of children.
I totally do disagree with that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Lee, Knox County currently funds one of our great nonprofits in town, Child Help, to hundreds of thousands of dollars annually. They help support children who have been abused, trafficked, or any number of horrific crimes, and do an exceptional job. They have a program that currently runs in our Knox County schools. That is an education program about sexual abuse. They are very concerned about this resolution, as am I, because essentially under this resolution, they would have to shut down that education program. They go into schools from children of all ages, from kindergarten and up. They talk about sex, they talk about abuse, they talk about body parts, they talk about, horrific things, but they also talk about normal things, which, are biological. Are you concerned that we would need, under this resolution, that we would need to defund Child Help and specifically that education program because it could be offensive to some people?
Commissioner Jay, I appreciate your question on that, and I do think Child Help does a good service in this county. I would say there's a difference between educational purpose and sexual gratification. And these shows that are being done, if they're being done with taxpayer dollars, are not for educational purposes that we're talking about. I'm not talking about the things that Child Help does to make children aware of child abuse, human trafficking. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about shows that are just for entertainment, for sexual gratification. I don't think it would be hard to disseminate that at all.
Okay, second question. If we were to have a development project, as we often do in the county, for a large theater complex, a Regal, AMC, and we approved a TIF pilot for that project, for the infrastructure, for the project itself, under the guides of economic development, would we be limited to not be able to approve those because that theater complex shows movies full of violence and sex, and that's taxpayer dollars going to a venue that may show something that is booked in that venue?
I think that would be something, if that came up at the time, that the body, the county commission, could vote and take into consideration.
So you're saying, yes, we could decide based upon our interpretation of the sexualization of children or what we deem moral or appropriate to withhold taxpayer resources for a development project because of what they show on their screen.
I didn't say moral, Commissioner Jay. I said sexually explicit that exploits our
No,
children.
you said we can't regulate
I
morality.
said we can't. No, we can't. We cannot regulate morality. But we can regulate what is sexually explicit exploiting our children. And that would be determined by if that situation came up on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, if that situation came up, would you vote to withhold public resources for a movie theater?
If a movie theater was showing to minor children under 18 any of the content that I just explained, yes.
Commissioner Fox.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to address, I'm going to address these things in reverse order. First of all, I don't think that we should be giving any private party operating dollars on a regular basis, except maybe some nonprofits, but certainly not a for-profit theater. We should not be subsidizing their operating budget. It's one thing to expend capital dollars. It's another thing to be subsidizing private operations. First of all, I interpret this resolution, and I don't have it in front of me, but I interpret this resolution as a forward-facing statement by the county as to what the basic community standards are with respect to obscenity. And why is the county given authority to do this? Well, first of all, we have a charter. We're a home charter county. The Dillon's rule governing county legislation does not apply. We have basically a police power as broad as possible, except that we can't contradict any state statutes. So there's that. Then secondly, the Supreme Court itself says that obscenity is to be determined in part by the community standards, not national standards, not state standards. We might have a different community standard than Memphis, for instance. We certainly, I think, would have a different community standard than New Orleans or Las Vegas or Los Angeles. So Knoxville is different. It has different norms than these other metropolitan areas. But who should be the one making these decisions about what the community standards are? Well, it should be the representatives of the community, and that is the county commission. And you know, the Miller versus California case provides that community standards is a key component, actually, of two of the three questions applied by, or courts that are supposed to apply when they're considering whether something's obscene. So we're the proper body to consider this. We're the proper body to have this forward-facing statement about what obscenity is in Knox County. And we shouldn't be spending money in any way for private groups to promulgate speech that Knox County citizens would find offensive. Now, we're not saying they can't engage in that speech. We're saying we shouldn't spend taxpayer dollars. And that's another thing. I've gotten some emails, people saying, well, this is censorship. No, it's not censorship. Because if you can go out and buy it privately, it's not censorship. But that's different than spending Knox County dollars to buy things or to pay for services. So, and the difference, when you're talking about masks versus obscenity, masks, the imposition of masks by the county was a violation of Fourth Amendment rights, search and seizure rights, as well as 14th Amendment bodily integrity rights. The most basic function of the human body is respiration. And at that time, government bodies were interfering with that basic function. That's very different than, what can be established as obscenity or not obscenity under a First Amendment standard by a county government. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to agree that this does seem fairly broad. And it just seems to me like if there were, I guess if you want to call them punishments, to nonprofits or folks who receive these funds, wouldn't it be better to have it tied to state law, where if something is obscene or children are admitted when it is an 18 and over event, just like we have beer board. When we have sell to a minor, there are consequences. They broke the law. There was something hard and codified in state law that we had something to follow, because then it's almost like we're going around and policing, or is this bad or is this good? Is this violation or is it not? And so if it's in state law, then obviously there's an authority that said, you broke the law, you admitted this minor into this program, then they weren't allowed. Then we could, if they were receiving county funds, then we could say, no, that wasn't a violation. Then maybe there were some consequences. But with just arbitrarily going, it just seems a little too broad for me without having it a foundation in state law. Because it doesn't sound like right now we have anything moving forward, any shows, any movie theaters or anything like that, where if it's not meant for minors, then it's not meant for minors moving forward. So that's just my thought.
Thank you. Commissioner Hill?
Thank you. I've talked to a couple of folks in particular that are in support of this resolution, and they will say to me, when I have come back with some of the things I've heard as to reasons perhaps not to support it, they will say, but you know the intent. You know the intent. Yes, I know the intent. I know that the intent, because there's not one person sitting on this commission that would want to purposely, intentionally hurt a child. I mean, I understand in the big picture the intent. I do not believe that this resolution is the way to try to carry out intent. The intent of the law, as clear as it seems to be, clearly is not clear at all. That is what keeps people suing people. That is what keeps attorneys on two sides of a issue defending it. is because our law is not clear, and our intent of the law often is not clear. That's what, forgive my reference to the two attorneys on this commission, but that's what keeps attorneys in business. Many times is what keeps attorneys in business, is because interpretation of the law is viewed in different ways. That concerns me regarding this resolution. Our Tennessee Code annotated, and part of it was quoted in this resolution, uses some of the terms that might be, that could be used as seen as violating a law, this law, such as sexually oriented material, such as harmful to minors, such as sexual conduct. To suggest that these are all absolutes is in fact not a fact. And there is a way to handle this, and the way to handle this, according to our own law, is through our obscenity law. And if for example, this parade that's occurring, someone feels like is breaking a law, then that's what our courts are for. You go and you defend your feeling in the courts. I'm concerned that this resolution is putting the commissioners in a place of being the governing body instead of our courts. Perhaps what you think is offensive, I don't. And they may, and it may or may not fall under this wording. That's very concerning to me. The most obvious situation is I was sent, as I know we all were, some emails that had pictures that were considered, in this person's view, to be harmful to our children and sexually offensive. This really struck a nerve with me because one of the pictures was, in fact, the normal developmental process that every man and every woman goes to as they grow and their bodies change. Yes, it was full frontal nudity. It was done in a not live, but kind of a sketch type of form. I looked at that and thought, that's very appropriate. And you talk about harming our kids. Think about some of our kids that don't have parents to go to ask these questions to, that don't have people that they trust. I would really hate to think they couldn't walk into a public library and check out a book about changes in me and look at some pictures. Now, in my world, and in fact, I used those when I was in the school system. In my world, that is not offensive. That clearly was offensive to the person who sent it to me, but it was not offensive to me. Do I, sitting on this commission, want to suddenly become the one that judges whether things that are not so clear are in my preview to stop or not stop? So that's one of the main concerns that I have in this. Another one is, we can dodge the elephant in the room all that we want, but as we know, one of our city and county entities, Visit Knoxville, receives a great deal of funding from both of us. I do understand that, and the city gives them
Okay,
almost
we'll
as
go
much
ahead and
money
get
as we
started.
do
It's 4:00. This is
to
the
operate.
November.
I do understand that they were asked by our city to contribute $1,000 toward this parade. So my concern is, from what I think I heard Commissioner Lee say, is if they do this, then from this point forward, we, the county, cut them off. Now, we can play semantics all we want here and say, oh, well, it wasn't the county money we gave them that did that, it was the city money. That's not gonna work. This resolution does not allow that to work. And my closing comment, Commissioner Lee, that you made about, we are required by state law to fund our schools, and we can't do anything about that. I will remind you, in our own commission budget, that outside of what the state requires, this county commission funds several hundreds of thousands of dollars to our schools to make up gaps in positions that are not funded by the state, to make up gaps in raises, to make up a lot of gaps so that our school system, in fact, can be the quality school system that it is. So we do, in fact, fund that. We're only required to give the state amount, but we do, in fact, send a lot of money to the schools that is not pass-through money from the state. So for all those reasons, I cannot support this resolution.
Thank you. Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just had a couple questions for Commissioner Lee. So with the broad nature of the resolution, do you see that, who would be the person who would define each and every instance? And would that be commission? Will we have a line of issues to vote on and decide on a monthly basis? And then the second question is that if this were passed, what direction do we give staff on next steps for enforcement?
May I answer that, Madam Chair?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, first of all, if I could go back to Commissioner Thompson, that definition is in our law, TCA 3917-901. And to Commissioner Hill, I would like to say, I did say there's a difference between educational purposes and sexual gratification. And Commissioner Jackson, your question was, are we going to have monthly meetings about this? If need be, yes. Because I think our tax dollars are something that people in this community do care about. And if there is somewhere that's going to be where we're going to allocate tax dollars, I do think we would need to have a meeting about that. And who's it regulated by? As Commissioner Fox said, we represent our districts. Each commissioner represents their district, so each commissioner would have a vote, like we do on everything else. Did I answer all your questions, Commissioner Jackson?
Well, that answered the first question. The second question is that if passed, what direction do we give staff for enforcement?
Staff is in the county staff? I'm a little confused. I think it's just that we don't give taxpayer dollars to venues that would, have these type shows or displays of sexual exploitation.
I guess where my question is going is that, are we going to be directing staff to police, where the funds are going and do a in-depth analysis, on everything that each entity or whatever we give money to goes to?
I think that would be reported by the community as a whole, because there's nobody that can enforce every little thing that happens within the county. If we go through all the $1 billion budget, we don't know what every dime is going to. It's going to be in a lump sum, but if somebody in the community says, hey, they're doing X and so at this venue, and I was there and there were children there, that it is looked into.
Commissioner Jay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Law Director Book and Mr. Moyers, I'll ask both of you, are you aware of any taxpayer funds that are being used by Knox County in violation of state law?
I am not, but I don't know every where every penny goes. Chris Caldwell would know that, but I do not know of anything that, I don't know of anything that would meet these definitions, because these definitions are contained within Tennessee's obscenity law. And if we were funding obscenity, I'm sure that the district attorney would prosecute that.
Mr. Book, maybe you can just take the microphone from Mr. Rawls for a second.
To answer that question, I know of nothing that's being paid for that's in any way obscene. And as Mr. Moyers pointed out, we've got superbly strict laws regarding obscenity and protecting the innocence of children already. There's one that just was passed this last legislature, and it specifically takes care of it. And so what do you do with it? There's authority for the Attorney General at any time on anybody sending or coming in and saying there's something obscene affecting children. The Attorney General, District Attorney, can go and get an immediate restraining order. So it seems like state law is very much protecting everybody involved in this.
How many years have you worked in the county?
Oh, gee
Roughly.
whiz, longer than I like to think.
Over
I've been here 12 or 13 now.
Mr. Moyers, how long have you worked for Knox County?
That's cruel. I've been here since 1988,
Okay,
in one capacity or another.
in your 50-year combined career within Knox County, are you aware of any Knox County taxpayer-funded funds that are used to break state law in this regard?
No.
Thank you
I've
very
never seen
much.
Thank you. Commissioner Fox?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I liken this resolution very much to the policies that this body just adopted a month ago, or I guess should say reiterated both in September and October with regard to civil rights laws. I mean, Title IX, for instance, it states, no person in the United States shall on the basis of sex be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. It's a very broad statement. But we adopted it, or reiterated, I guess you could say. No one ever was against that except for the strange interpretation that the federal government has probably until January 6th. So again, I don't see the issue with, on this particular issue, especially if it's coterminous with state law. So this community is saying, or the community representatives would be saying, okay, we're going to go be coterminous with the state law as far as the boundaries of vicinity. I don't see why there would be any objection to reiterating that as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee?
Madam Chair, that would be my final comment. If we're law-abiding citizens and we're a law-abiding commission, we would be working with our laws of the state of Tennessee. So that's why I think that this resolution works hand in hand with our state law.
Thank you. Commissioner Durrett?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If this resolution were to pass, and as was stated, we are the representatives of our community, so it should be left up to us. Yes, we do represent our communities. However, my beliefs are mine. They are my own. And I seriously doubt there is one single person out of the roughly 55,000 people in my district that have the exact same beliefs and outlooks and definitions of things. Hell, my husband and I, oh dear Lord, if we could have 5 things in common at some point, that would be lovely. So that is my problem with this. If it is left to us to make the decision of what is obscene and or implement it or, be the authority of this of these decisions, I am actually doing my citizens a disservice that don't believe the same way I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. When Commissioner Hill was talking about Visit Knoxville, Knox County and the city of Knoxville give money to Visit Knoxville both. I spoke to Kim Bumpus this week. The mayor of the city of Knoxville requested $1,000 from their amount of money to go towards the Pride Parade. It had nothing to do with the county funds. So that's a city issue. The Tennessee Theater, Director Caldwell, will you come forward for a second, please? I'm just wanting to state some of these things because we get emails and there's a lot of stuff on social media that's kind of become theater-ish, and I think it's important to have actual facts. So the money that the county gives to the Tennessee Theater, will you let everybody know what we actually fund for that?
I'm gonna let Ms. Holden do that because it has
Perfect.
changed, just so you're
Thank
aware.
you.
So last year, that funding provided access to programming for seniors and students for Christmas and Thanksgiving programs. This year, however, they're using the funding for the Marquee Awards. That's the program where folks that have experience in the theater go to all the Knox County schools, all of their programs that they do annually. Then they have an award ceremony for the kids that were part of those productions, and the totality of what the county provided to the Tennessee Theater really went towards this program this year.
Okay, so no drag shows, no,
Absolutely not.
okay. So those are the three that I've heard. IMS, which they're not doing, which to the, I guess, compliment of Mayor Jacobs, he called IMS, I believe it was last year, the year before, whenever this came up, asked them to stop that program. They did that. They've not done anything since that I know of. I've not heard anything. Visit Knoxville, that was city money. It was not county money. And the last one was the libraries. So if I'm not mistaken, county mayor also, a year or so ago, and I could be wrong on my timing, but he set forward some new policies for the library and for the books that are in the library. So these came directly from the library board, and there's just some things, like I say, that I want to put out there so actual correct information is out to the public and to maybe some of the other commissioners that aren't sure. Parents must select an access level for minors. So youth is access to all print materials, juvenile and teen media, public computers, and online resources. Youth restricted is access to juvenile print and media only, and general is access to all print, all media, public computers, and online resources age 14 plus only. Children 10 and under must be accompanied by a parent or a guardian at all times. Adults not accompanying a child are prohibited from any children's area except to actively select materials. And then library materials are categorized by age, so you have juvenile, teen, and adult. Materials are shelved in physically separate areas by category and format. All juvenile and teen materials are shelved independent of each other. All juvenile and teen materials are shelved away from adult materials. Library staff routinely sweep areas for misplaced materials. Parents must decide what materials are suitable for their children. Reviews of materials are available to parents in the public library catalog, and a request for reconsideration process is in place for patrons who wish to formally object to content. So there is a request for reconsideration, that if patrons with objection to library material must fill out a request to reconsideration form. Reconsideration forms are available at Knox County Library locations. The relevant collection development team, youth and adult, reviews the materials in question by reading the text and considering views of the material. Review of the material is guided by the material select policy. Once the relevant committee decides to retain, relocate, and remove the material, The head of the relevant committee discusses the decision with the library director and the assistant director of collections and access services. The patron is informed by letter of the library's decision to retain, relocate, or remove the materials. So there again, you can say the public dollars, but the mayor and the library board have taken steps to make sure that no inappropriate material for certain ages are accessible for that. Again, we get back to what I said with the previous resolution. There is a parent responsibility that the government does not have, and that is to make sure that they know what their children are reading, watching, playing, participating in, and going to. That is a parent's responsibility. And there are kids, like Commissioner Hill said, that do not have maybe a parent situation, that are comfortable talking about sexual situations, and library books can be helpful. They've been helpful for umpteen years with all of us when we were growing up. So again, I feel like this resolution is broad, but it's also, we're not funding, when we talk about funding something at an actual location, it sounds as though Knox County is funding the drag show because we do a funding. That is so not true. And it's been frustrating to hear because our Tennessee Theater is a landmark in this county or in this town. And to say that kids that may not have an opportunity to go during this program, or the seniors can't go to this physical place because they have one show that I don't agree with. I'm not going to take my grandkids to. I wouldn't take my kids to, but that's my right to do. Then we don't fund for the seniors, and the seniors are taxpayers that want to go to the Tennessee Theater to see a show that we're helping fund that they might not be able to afford. So it doesn't, I think it sounds great and it gets everybody geared up really good and it's done it, but it's not factual. So, and I also spoke to Ms. Holden because there's an application online when we give to nonprofits and they have to fill out all of the information. And Ms. Holden would be more than happy to give to any commissioner that wanted on any nonprofits that we fund to. Sir, I'm speaking, thank you. So that is available, and it needs to be, the information needs to be correct, is what I'm saying. And I think there's just been a lot of emotion and a lot of misinformation out there that is a problem. And that's a problem for me. So I wanted to make sure that we cleared that up on any of the situations. Number 28, we talked about full commission is signing on to. So if there's no further business before this optional review.
Madam Chair,
I'm
number
sorry,
26.
Commissioner Durrett.
Number 20, I asked to discuss number 26. There's nothing posted online. I just wanted to know what it was.
Commissioner Durrett, when we went to the county commission conference last week, 2 weeks ago, I sat on the Veterans Committee and they asked us all to go back to our communities and asked everybody to put a green light bulb out in honor of Veterans Day, the week of Veterans Day.
Okay.
So it's something that the State Veterans Committee sponsored.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Well, I just want to get a point of clarification on the point of this meeting, because, Commissioner Fox brought up some issues today, and then we had this, and we had some lively discussion this afternoon. But I don't know, I just feel like we're just going to have the exact same discussion next week. And, I kind of feel like this meeting as an agenda review could be done 30 minutes before the county commission on pulling stuff in or pulling stuff out. I just would like a clarification. I'd just like to discuss, what is, do we hash out all the arguments at this and then just vote next week?
That's really what should happen. Now,
Okay.
there'll be other discussions, I'm sure, but we're able to at least ask some questions. And Commissioner Hill probably got some of her questions answered, and Commissioner Durrett, and so we can get those things done, and we're able to do them in the public setting that we're supposed to be doing, and be able to ask the questions that we might be confused on, so it doesn't make also the regular meeting go so long, because,
Correct, but I think,
It's also for the staff. I mean, if there's something that came up that was, had a lot of detail and information as a courtesy to the people who work here every single day and run the government, to give them an opportunity to hear, do I need to go back and get more information? Do I need to bring more to the table? Give us some time, a week in advance,
Sure.
to kind of get things going.
sure, I just feel like today we started to get into a debate, and I just don't know if this is, I don't know, is this the proper setting for a debate, or is it next week at the county commission?
It can be both meetings, yeah. Okay, seeing no further, we're adjourned until 5 o'clock zoning.